This is an Island Vote 2014 campaign close-up.
Do we re-elect a governor who may end up in jail?
And there are still people trying to end a woman's right to choose.
With bold reforms, we can get New York
Over the
winning
years,
again.
I've helped my kids by just being there. That's why I want real teachers.
Give us 4 years in Albany, then decide.
Well, welcome to the Island Vote 2014 campaign close-up. I'm Doug Geed. For the next half hour, we're going to be speaking with Rob Astorino, the Republican candidate running for New York State Governor. Mr. Astorino is currently serving his second term as Westchester County Executive. Prior to his career in politics, he worked in the radio industry. Now, we invited Governor Andrew Cuomo to News 12 Long Island to debate Mr. Astorino, but the governor's office did not return our calls and emails. But we appreciate you coming in, Mr. Astorino.
It's good to be here, Doug.
So you're county executive of Westchester. Long Island is familiar, of course, with Nassau and Suffolk. You are Westchester's Ed Mangano and Steve Ballone. Westchester, Suffolk, and Nassau very similar in terms of our makeup, in terms of upper middle class suburbanites, and very overstressed property taxing residents. So just let's start right off. You know, for the homeowners in Westchester and Nassau and Suffolk, those middle class suburban taxpayers, how would you help us out as governor?
The way I helped out in Westchester, you know, when I ran in 2009, Westchester's a little different than Nassau and Suffolk in regard to the political registration. Here it's more even, Republican, Democrat. In Westchester, of our million people, 49% Democrat, 24% Republican. So everyone said, you can't win, it's impossible. I was 30 points down in the polls on Labor Day in 2009, going up against a Democratic heavyweight who outspent me 5-1. Down 15 points on Election Day, and I won by 13 points in very deep blue Westchester. Because we really focused on a couple things: stopping the tax madness, preserving essential services, and promoting economic growth. And I did that in my 4 years in my first term. We actually cut county property taxes more than any county in New York State. The budget today, when I walked in, was $1.8 billion. It's $1.7 billion now. So we actually reduced spending. As a result, we had 30,000 new private sector jobs and one of the lowest unemployment rates in New York State, and yet we never turned our back on anyone in need. We actually put a little more money into the social safety net programs. So I was reelected last year by 13 points in a county, as I said, overwhelmingly Democrat, but we attracted in our 4 years, governmentally and politically, a lot of Democrats to cross over. I won the majority of Hispanic vote. And we're 22% Hispanic in Westchester, 25% of the African American vote. So we did this collaboratively because we had some big problems. Structurally, we had a major deficit. That was my gift from my predecessor, among other things. But we actually worked through them in a collaborative way. I have a Democratic county board, so we work bipartisan to actually get these things done.
Hearing everything you're saying, it sounds like what Andrew Cuomo is saying about his 4 years in Albany. The state was a mess. We had a $10 billion deficit. I've grown jobs. I've cut taxes. In fact, instead of me saying it, let's hear actually from the governor himself in terms of how he says he's been effectively turning around the economy of the state.
New Yorkers don't like losing. So why do we accept being dead last in America under Andrew Cuomo? Highest taxes, the worst economic outlook, the most people leaving a state? Cuomo has struck out for New York.
So we've brought down taxes, and that has brought up jobs. 511,000 new jobs. This state has more jobs than it has ever had in the history of the state of New York.
All right. I mean, would you agree that the state is much better off today than it was 4 years ago?
I'd ask the average Long Islander, has your property taxes gone down? Do you feel like your electric rates have gone down? Do you think things are better? Because they're not. And it's the same for Westchester and around the whole state. You know, the 500,000 new jobs he said he's created, let's put that into perspective. That's over 4 years at best. A lot of those are second jobs that people have had to take out just to pay the taxes and to put food on the table, or put a little money in a 529 account for their kids like we're doing.
Which is kind of what's happening across the nation, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but that 500,000 jobs over 4 years, Texas created almost 500,000 jobs last year alone. That's what a good economy looks like. We are, against the other 49 states measured, we're at the bottom of the rankings in just about everything that matters. Worst business climate, it says it in the commercial, but worst business climate, worst economic outlook. You know, we grew as a state 0.7%. Now, to put that in context, America is 1.8%, and that's brutal. So we're lagging behind everywhere, and this state continues to fall down, and people continue to look at it like a prison sentence living in New York now. A couple more years, and I'm out of here. And that shouldn't be, because this is New York. We could be the greatest state again, but we got to change policies, not this high tax, high spend policies. Now you've got the governor hooking up with Bill de Blasio and that agenda out of New York City, which he publicly promised to do. You know what that's going to mean? Much higher taxes, much more spending. That's the last thing we need here on Long Island, in Westchester, or anywhere in this state.
Let's talk about 4 on-time budgets in New York State. Has not happened in 40 years, and the erase of that $10 billion deficit. I mean, those are accomplishments. Does he not get credit for that?
Well, first of all, with the on-time budgets, you're supposed to do that. Secondly, what's in the budget's far more important than just getting it done on time. You know, you look at the taxes. Taxes are the highest there are in the nation, not just property taxes, income taxes as well, corporate taxes. You know, just by moving the dial by an inch and claiming victory is an undeserved victory lap, because we're still at the bottom compared to all the other states. So I ask people, you know, do you feel like things have gotten a lot better? They haven't. People are struggling in this state. You know, the middle class is getting squeezed like never before. Those on the lower levels for income, they can't make it up to a higher level because the jobs aren't there. The jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs, too, concentrated around New York City. So things are not going well, and when you turn on the light, wait till you get that bill at the end of the month, too.
Well, he gets criticized on the left for cutting a lot of business and corporate taxes. What would you do? I assume tax cuts you're talking about for companies, homeowners?
Well, first of all, the property tax cap goes away in 2 years. It expires. That should be made permanent. We have a plan that the Wall Street Journal said is bold and exactly what New York needs to lift the economy. We would be the most competitive state in the Northeast. That's what our plan would do. It would take away income taxes from 8 brackets down to 2, and the thresholds would be $200,000 individual, $300,000 family. Anything lower, it's 4%. Anything above it, it's 6%. People actually could keep much more of their money and pay for the bills, and actually maybe go on vacation or to a bowling alley once in a while. But we'd also eliminate the estate tax and cut the 18A, which is the utility taxes. That's what's driving up, it's the nuisance tax, it's driving up the cost of utilities. It's actually hurting manufacturing in this state because they're leaving because of the high energy costs. You know, when you look at the surveys, the AARP said in their survey, 61% of those 50 and over in New York are likely to leave this state. 41% in Gallup of New Yorkers said that they would leave if they could. We've got to change this state, and just continuing down the same ruinous road is not going to be good. The other scary part, by the way, is if Andrew Cuomo gets a second term and is allowed to follow that Bill de Blasio agenda and the Assembly Democrats out of New York City, that is only going to mean extraordinarily high taxes. The only safeguard that you have, certainly on Long Island, is someone who lives in suburbia and understands it very, very well, and that would be a Republican governor, that would be me, who would be the check and balances that we would need from a runaway New York City Council and a runaway Assembly.
All right. To be fair, though, he has worked well with Senate Republicans, and I know what he has said publicly about supporting Democrats, but there still seems to be a good relationship there, but that remains to be seen. And the estate tax, isn't that already a drastic cut and being phased down? No, not a drastic cut, a small phase down. But look, you've got Florida, for instance. You know, New Yorkers used to go down to Florida for a vacation, or North Carolina for a vacation. Even the snowbirds would always come home. Now, people aren't coming home. They're moving in record numbers. We've had 400,000 in the last 4 years. So if things were really good, if the cost of living were acceptable and easy, people would stay here because nobody wants to leave. But just to peck away at the margins means we're still the highest tax in America. I want to move on to a topic here, the 2-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy's coming up. It's obviously a huge, huge issue for Long Islanders, and Governor Cuomo has received some criticism, some credit by some, criticism by others for his handling of the program, especially New York Rising. Here's what he said in a recent News 12 Long Island interview.
Look, I wish the number was 100%, right? You don't want anyone who doesn't feel that all their needs were met. But literally, I would say 98% of the people who have been serviced by the program have been serviced very well. It's almost impossible in these situations to make everyone happy on everything.
Hi, my name is Pat Donahue. I'm from Seaford, Long Island. Mr. Astorino, my home was destroyed by Sandy, and I have friends and neighbors whose homes were destroyed by Sandy. Many of us are living in rentals. We're paying rent and mortgage at the same time, as well as taxes. What would you do if you were elected to get us out of this mess and get us home?
All right,
Yeah, that's a great question, too. And I visited with people in Mastic Beach and Seaford and other areas, and just this past weekend in a home that's been gutted still 2 years later, which is, it's not unreasonable for people who have been displaced, who were promised, and now they're dealing with a bureaucratic nightmare and they can't get back into their homes. I think for most people, the New York Rising has been a bureaucratic mess. To have the thousands of people that are still displaced, not just here on Long Island, by the way,
right,
but also throughout New York City,
sure,
proves that it's become bungled. It's become a bureaucratic nightmare. It should have been centralized. People need to get answers more than anything. They need to get answers in a centralized location, not to be sent all around. Now, when we were hit by Sandy, what we did was, because the frustrations grew from people who were trying to call Con Edison and to get answers about when the lights were coming back on, we put everybody at the Westchester County Center, our arena, like Nassau Veterans, and we put the utility companies, social services, everyone they would need to get an answer in one location, so it's one-stop shopping and they don't have to be suffering on a phone or not have an internet capability. That's really what's needed. The bureaucracy needs to be shaved down so people can get answers and get their checks.
So you could do that now. That's what you would do. What you're saying is
absolutely. That's what has to be done. And in my conversations with a lot of Sandy victims, that's been the biggest problem.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit. Ed Mangano, the Nassau County Executive, has worked closely with the governor. Superstorm Sandy, they saw quite a lot of each other, and he did not endorse you. And I believe we have Mr. Mangano as well.
As long as I can remember, state government never worked, and certainly never helped Long Island. But 4 years ago, Governor Cuomo started shaking up Albany. I'm a Republican, and I'm voting for Governor Cuomo, because his leadership is working for Long Island.
All right, for you to win, you need a big turnout here on Long Island.
Yep.
That had to be, that had to hurt.
No, you know, look, I know Ed for 5 years because we both got elected on the same day in 2009 when everyone said we couldn't win. And I respect Ed. However, you know, Ed is dead wrong. Now, look, I think, as most people think, this was the payback that Ed had to give in order to get the red light cameras passed by the governor, which I think is an unmitigated disaster. It's just a money grab, red light cameras. I can't stand them. You know, you have a financial control board here in Nassau County, which the governor controls. So I don't, you know, for the life of me, know why anyone would want to put their arms around a governor who's under federal investigation for corruption right now, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, failure to report crimes. That's what the U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is looking at. And in the debate the other night, when I asked the governor to just clarify if you want, just look people in the eye and tell them you have not been subpoenaed, you're not under investigation, he couldn't do that. Twice he was asked, including afterwards in the press conference, and he can't. So you got a governor who is under investigation, so I don't know why anyone would want to put their arms around that.
Amazing to me that no one started a Stop Red Light Camera party, because I feel like that candidate would win.
But I have a Stop Common Core party.
Yes, that is true. Do you have them in Westchester, by the way? Red
Limited
light camera, school
in the
zone,
city of
anything
Yonkers
like
wanted it. It's something I can't stand because it does nothing, I don't think, including AAA thinks so and other motorist groups, to make anyone safer. It is pure and simple a money grab. And it may very well cause accidents as people freak out going through, looking at the camera, and is it yellow, is it red?
So what would you say to those county executives like yourself
I'd
if
say
you
no
become
more.
governor and mayors who depend on that income coming
I would
in?
say no more. Start looking at other ways that you can cut like I've cut. You know, there's a property tax cap which expires. We didn't need a property tax cap. I've gone 5 budgets now with no tax increase. We actually cut property taxes. And we have a budget that's smaller. Is it tough? Yeah, you got to make some tough decisions. But we did it, and we'll continue to do that in the state.
Just dawned on me that in Westchester County, your constituents include Andrew Cuomo,
the Clintons,
and Bill and Hillary Clinton.
That's right. And they should all be thanking me for cutting their taxes.
I assume they don't have Astorino for governor signs on their lawns?
You'd be surprised.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our campaign close-up with gubernatorial candidate Rob Astorino right here on News 12 Long Island. Welcome back to the Silent Vote 2014 campaign.